I remember I tracked every shift in a 2-week period, like to the minute. And I was underpaid £120 in that paycheck. I then realised I needed to raise some more money and had no clue how. So I messaged 2,500 people on LinkedIn. Now you've got to pay was really scary, but if you offer enough value and it's solving a big enough problem and you keep them going with you, on that journey, then actually you can do it. Everything was against me and I got through by just pure determination and the fact that the product was good.
This is the Leeds Business Podcast and I'm your host, Phil Fraser. This week we speak to George Fairhall, founder of WAC. George tells us about the shocking problem that caused her to launch the business, the long bootstrapping route from idea to product, and the continuous difficulties experienced in raising funding. The business surgery this week answers the question, I've fallen out of love with my business. What can I do? Before we start, I have one simple request of you. Please hit the follow or subscribe button on the app that you're listening on. That's it, that's all. Okay, so let's get into what is a really stimulating episode. Today on the Leeds Business Podcast, I am delighted to have my guest as George Fairhall, founder and owner of WAC. Hi, George.
Hi, thanks for having me, Phil. Nice to be here.
It's great to have you. Now, we will, during the course of our interview, talk a lot about finance, because I know you've got a lot to say about that. But have you ever taken private equity?
No, I haven't. Not yet. Something we're looking into with our next round, potentially, or future rounds, but not yet.
Okay, the reason I ask is today's podcast is brought to you in association with Leeds-based YFM Equity Partners. YFM Equity Partners offer investments from £2 to £15 million, specifically to fast-growing businesses, as well as providing the resources and expertise needed to take your business to the next level. So if you're an entrepreneur with a vision for growth, whether you're expanding your market or scaling operations, YFM Equity Partners can help you turn your ambitions for your business into a reality. Now, interestingly, I know you know Xandra Moore from Pan Intelligence, don't you?
Yes, I do. Very well.
Xandra was on episode 23, and they actually have been invested in by YFM. So if you want to hear all about them, have a listen to that episode. So if you're looking for a partner with a team that believes in your potential, you can find out more at yfmep.com. The address is in the show notes. And when you do contact YFM, make sure you tell them that Phil from Leeds Business Podcast sent you. So, George, let's start with a really simple question for our listeners. What is WAC in one sentence?
So WAC is the app for hourly paid workers who want to take charge of their work life and their finances.
Okay, right. Now, before we get into WAC, let's go backwards. And you were going to qualify as a lawyer, is that right?
Wow. I was thinking about it. I went to university to do law and I graduated, and I did actually then do my LPC part-time whilst working full-time and starting the business. So I had to make a decision in the end, but I did get halfway through my LPC to potentially then qualify. So yes.
Okay, so tell us why you didn't go all the way through on the lawyer, because this is where the idea came from, wasn't it?
Well, I think I've always had like a drive to help people. I think really when I look back at it and why I wanted to be a lawyer, the things I wanted to do was kind of fight the rights of people, for people. And I think that's kind of where I got my love for it. And in the end, I've sort of created something that involves a little bit of my law background, also my creativity side. And I've basically built an app that is helping people, and I put together all the designs, and it was my vision that actually started it. So the reason I actually didn't continue with it is because I graduated. I then went into hospitality full time whilst I figured out what I wanted to do, whether I wanted to go into a firm or put myself through my LPC. And during that time, I was working hourly paid jobs, which I had done for 10 years at that point. I was underpaid a lot. I struggled to keep track of my hours, and I felt like no one cared. So I really got the idea for the business. I didn't have a clue how to start it, and I knew that maybe the university might give me some access to resources, or, you know, be able to help with the start of building a business. So I ended up then going back to university and doing my LPC part-time whilst I was working full-time in hospitality. So I'd go at weekends, and I picked up things like company law, business law, IP law, employment law. So I kind of based it around what I hoped to do with the business, hoping I'd learn, but if not, I'd be able to fall back on it. And really, it all stopped when I did a competition with the university. And out of 2,500 people, after 3 months of being registered with the business, I got down to the final 6 for Santander and realized, oh, maybe I do have a good idea. And I got some validation that I needed and support that I needed. And at that point, I had to make a choice whether I continued with the LPC, deferred it, you know, carried on with my job, or took the business seriously and just like went for it. So I decided to go for it with the business, which meant I deferred my LPC and quit my job. So that's why it didn't continue, and it's still to this day. So I don't think I'm going to be able to go back to that now.
Okay, so let's just rewind slightly. A couple of things you said there. So you're working in hospitality, you're doing, I guess, 0 hours hourly work, and you said you were underpaid and you couldn't track what you were doing. So that's a case of you know, you working and then saying, well, hang on, I worked 20 hours, but you've only paid me 18, or them saying you only did 18 and you haven't got a note of the fact you did 20 or something like that. That's the start of the idea, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. I actually worked in hairdressers when I was 13, pubs. I did waitressing, agency jobs, bar jobs the most. I really had done every type of job to get me through my studies. A lot of my friends had, and I just found myself in the same situation in every job, just struggling to keep track, thinking it wasn't right. I hated the fact that it was normalized, and you get to payday and you'd sort of shrug your shoulders like, well, what do I do? Because either find that scrap of paper that you've scribbled your notes on somewhere at 3 a.m. when you finish work, or find the notes in your phone that you might have missed, or it was just a nightmare. And it just become normal, you know. It was like, well, you're a student. It's like, yeah, but when you really look at it, there was a lot of people, there's millions of people in jobs that aren't just students in a bar job. But anyway, why should that be happening? You know, why has it become so normal? If a salaried worker was underpaid or had their hours not tracked properly, there'd be like absolute chaos. So why is it happening for millions of workers in hourly paid work, and why is no one doing anything about it?
Okay, so I mean, this is sort of classic startup. You find a pain point and you go, right, I'm going to solve it. So from that frustration, just take us step by step through. Okay, I'm frustrated. There must be a better solution. What did you do? How does one go from a problem to trying to create something?
I mean, I had no idea. So I talked about it for many months to my friends and family and told them, why is there nothing? And I looked on the App Store, and everyone around me was like, yeah, why isn't there anything? And I tried to sort of take it more seriously and was like, right, I'm going to really try and track my hours and see actually how much I'm underpaid, like do it really properly, you know. So I remember I tracked every shift in a 2-week period, like to the minute. And I was underpaid £120 in that paycheck. And I actually got it back from those notes I'd written on my phone. And I thought, oh my gosh, if this is like just now, how many times does this happen? How many times is it happening? There was another case where I had worked at an agency job for Asda. So it was an agency that Asda were employing. It was a 2-day job. I worked in a supermarket handing out samples of cider, freezing cold in freezer aisle, hated it, and I never got paid. And it actually was a different case with this. They actually ghosted me and just didn't get back to me, and I couldn't get hold of them. So I called Citizen Advice, and they told me that I couldn't do anything unless I paid for a lawyer, which was probably going to cost more than the £250 I'd lost. So there was a couple of scenarios that happened that really like just got me like really serious about it, and was like, this is mad. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, there must be something. And at that point, this was in 2018. So there wasn't loads and loads of kind of things about apps, you know. It has really progressed. But I didn't really know anyone in my network that had started a business. I had no clue. So I ended up just drawing out my dream business, doing some research into what was available already. I spoke to as many people as I could about the problem. I ended up paying my friend in beer to mock up my designs, to have something that looked like an app so I could go out and say to people, would this help? And essentially I created a prototype without realizing, which was just a few screens, but enough to get that basic information back to see whether it was a problem. And I used my network of, I got that out to about 500 bartenders in the end. That could give me feedback. And that was when I decided, like, how do I get further? So that's where I then went back to university and thought I could maybe get some access to some support that way. And then ended up doing that competition that the university put me through for. And then the judge of that competition worked for Microsoft, and he actually saw, I think, something in me. I was up against Oxbridge students, like building technology to solve strokes, and there's me in my Primark suit selling an app with some mocked up images that my friend had done for beer. But it was a true problem and people saw it, and it was that validation that I needed, and where I could take it seriously and have the confidence. So I approached that judge and I said, I feel like, I've got a good idea, but I also feel like, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. And he actually offered to support me and invited me to London to the Microsoft offices and sat down with me for hours. And we just brainstormed around the room. What's the problem? What am I trying to solve? What do I want to do? How much am I prepared to commit to this? Do I have access to funding? No. What's the next steps? And really at that point, I'd planned out the business. I had pitched it. I'd got some validation. From doing that, I'd created some mock-ups of the business, which was like a prototype of the product. I'd gone out and tested that. I'd done some competitor analysis, and I'd really done those first things that I needed to do, and where I could then take it to the next level and take it seriously. And so then he kind of advised me, like, right now you need to get some quotes on getting this developed. Can you get it developed here? Do you need to outsource it? Who can you speak to? How are you going to raise the funding to do that? These are the different types of funding that there are. And he just told me those next very basic few things. I put myself on an accelerator course to try and get that next level information. And I went out and did those things that he said. And then once I'd done that, it unlocked the next thing and unlocked the next thing and unlocked the next thing. So really, I've just taken it step by step, tried to not run before I could walk, and just taken as much advice as I possibly can around me.
I mean, that is a great pathway, particularly at a startup. Mock it up, test it, get some competitor analysis, get some user feedback, then get some expertise feedback, then get some validation. So by the time you're going, right, okay, I need funding, you've ticked quite a lot of the boxes that a lot of startups don't tick. So you said you put yourself on an accelerator. Just talk us about that, because people talk about accelerators and sometimes people don't know what you talk about. So where was it? What did it cover? What did you gain from it?
Yeah, sure. So now I kind of look and I see the amount of accelerators out there, and I think sometimes it depends on the stage of business that you're at. If you're super early, then the really basic ones were really good. But I think they sort of have to be clear about that basic level of support that they're going to give you, because I think quite often those accelerators like to bring in some businesses that might be quite advanced, that are maybe a bit too far for what they're offering. And at that point, it can then sometimes be a little bit of a waste of time for that business, but it will make the accelerator look good because they've got that business on that's a little bit more advanced. That's from my experience, not saying they're all doing that, but I have done some at a sort of later stage that I'm like, don't know how much help that was. So I think it's important to really look into the accelerator and get recommendations. So talk to people that have been on the accelerator before and actually see how beneficial it is. But at the start, I knew nothing. So I think the most basic accelerator for me would have still been helpful. So I learned they usually separate it out into sort of like different weeks. Maybe one is marketing, one is finance, one is fundraising. So you sort of start to learn each of those steps. And usually there's someone there that can give you support where you can just ask all of those questions. So I would just go with literally a list of questions. I didn't care how stupid I looked. I was like, I'm going to leave that place. No, having with the answers to everything. And actually in that accelerator, one of the next steps I needed to do was obviously raise funding and look for development. And I knew from hearing about it, I probably wouldn't be able to afford to get app development in the UK because it was very expensive. So outsourcing was probably better suited. But obviously you hear all of these horror stories with outsourcing, and is the IP, obviously I knew a certain level because of my legal experience. So how do I make sure the IP is mine? Like, what about the communication? What if they don't understand it was a bit scary. So those two things that I didn't have a clue with, funding and development, I actually got access to grant funding from that accelerator. So although it just kind of taught me basic stuff, I actually then got access to grant funding that gave me the half of my development costs. So I got £10,000 in dev costs given to me, and I got £10,000 in legal fees given to me, which both things were vital for the launch of the app. So even though that didn't directly come from the accelerator, I got that from it. And I also met another great business that was on the accelerator, who he had his prototype, and it was amazing. And I found myself calling software beautiful for the first time, and I couldn't believe it. And I was like, maybe I can become a techie because I wasn't. And I asked him who did that for you. It looks amazing. And he said it was his friend in India that had started a development company specifically to kind of help businesses from the US and the UK that are worried about, that had trust issues, that were worried about how does this work? Like, are they going to be okay with my contract, with making sure the IP is mine? And what if I want to build an internal team and not have them anymore? Like, they would help you migrate. And they were just like, kind of what I wanted. And was so excited to speak to him. So he ended up recommending them, spoke to them for a long time. And I ended up going out to India and didn't leave until the designs were done. So I took all my designs and mock-ups. I went over there, introduced myself, built relationships with them, made sure that it was, really definitely the right choice. That they understood my vision. I wanted to bring them on, long term if I could. And I built the trust I needed to, and they were absolutely fine to separate that up into a design and development stage. So we just did the design phase first. So until those wireframes were done, I didn't pay any more money, to go into the development. And they were just a great business. So we work very closely with them now. So I don't know if anyone ever needs help with that. I'm fine with recommending, but it's really important to have those relationships, and to build that trust early on. And I did that. And it kind of came from each of those stages, like going to an accelerator, speaking to that person, meeting that person. And so that's really how it develops. So accelerators, the answer to your question, are good, but just make sure you know what you intend to get from them and that they are at the right stage for you, I'd say.
I think that's key. I think going on an accelerator that is at the right stage is the important thing. Because you don't want to be way advanced of everybody else on the accelerator, but at the same time, you don't want it too basic for where you are on your journey. But it's interesting you say, and a lot of people say this about accelerators, it's not necessarily what you learn there, and obviously you learn a lot. It's the network you build and the support and the contacts and all that sort of stuff, which then took you to the next stage. Okay, so you've been out to India, you've got your designs done, you've got your wireframes done. Sort of what sort of timeline are we here at, and then what did you do next?
Yeah, so we're in. So 2018 was when I registered the business. That year was when I was working full-time at law school and doing the business in the evenings. At the end of that year, I decided to quit my job and go full-time. And I went full-time in January 2019. So that was about a year later. I then went and did these next steps that I've just spoken about. And that was getting into kind of the middle of 2019. And then we aimed to launch kind of like the first version of the app to test, not to go out to marketing yet, to kind of go out to that original group that I had given the prototype to test and essentially try and break before we started marketing it. I'd raised just enough money to get the product designed and developed, and that actually was a learning curve because the university offered me some money. It was the first kind of spin out that they'd ever done. I actually turned it down to their shock because I was mortified by the amount of equity universities take for spin outs, which I had no clue how was the case. It's usually around 30 to 40%. And I was like, there's no way I'm doing all this and giving up my law career and quitting my job if you're going to already take that amount. But I didn't really know that was really one of the times I've gone with my heart. So they ended up offering me a convertible loan, which is a really good way to get some funding early on, which basically they give you the money. It kind of counts as a loan. And then at the next round of funding, so when you are a little bit more at a later stage, or there's more people involved, or there's investors, there's more investors to negotiate your valuation and therefore what equity you give. Their loan then converts at that stage later on, but they would get a discount for giving it to you at an earlier point. So for taking that risk, basically. So they came back and offered that, and I accepted. So that gave me enough money. That was £25,000. That gave me enough money to get to the end of development. I then realized I needed to raise some more money, and had no clue how. So I messaged 2,500 people on LinkedIn, tracked it manually, message by message, and managed to get £70,000 from 3 investors, one of which was the former chair of Monzo, who now is our chairman, who came on in July 2021. So not sure it's the best way to do it now, especially with how spammy LinkedIn's got, but it worked for me and I got the money. So that gave me the next bit. And then I actually then, because I raised that funding, converted the £25,000 loan I got from the university at less than 2%, less than a year later. So I could have accepted that money for, 30 to 40%, but a year later, it actually got processed at 2%. So at that point I realized, like, oh, business is scary. Like, I need the right people around me and I don't know what I'm doing. And luckily I got away with that one.
So you launched into the market just as COVID hit. What was that like?
Yes, we did. Worst. Well, I'd say we thought it was the worst timing, but actually it ended up okay. Obviously we were targeting hourly paid workers. We had been very specific about who we targeted, and we're going out to hospitality and retail at first. But they obviously all lost their jobs a week after we launched, even though we got some quite good data in that week, which was good to see. It made my heart rate go down a little bit. And we ended up just changing our advertising to NHS, to agency workers, to the COVID workers, supermarket workers, takeaway delivery. We basically figured out who's left, and really it turned out to be the essential workers. So we were able to launch and support people in a time where they were, most worried and confused about what was going on and how to track their finances and being furloughed. And so we actually could help people through a really tough time. And then hospitality and retail came back, and the numbers that we expected happened. And really then it was just about building the app to make sure it was we'd exposed all of the bugs, taken user feedback and tried to enhance it as much as we could. But then just to get traction, to prove the problem and product market fit, to be able to then move on to the next stage and raise more funding. So that's then what we focused on for the next year to 2 years, really.
Okay. Just to clarify, what's the business model? How do you make money?
Yeah, so at the moment we are a freemium app. So you have a free version of the app and then you have a premium option. We actually only launched that about 5 months ago. So it's really just been about trying to get to revenue generation. It's really common as a B2C app to take this approach because funding is usually not very easy to get for B2C businesses, because they're notoriously high risk and can burn lots of money on marketing. Like, a lot of investors are put off from it. And the ones that aren't, you usually have to get to a level of traction or validation that they're prepared to take that risk. So the first stages of kicking off an app is really, really difficult if you don't have anything backing you, if you don't have money yourself backing you. So it was literally a case of me raising funding like a crazy woman, exhausted, finding it wherever I could, telling my story, finding people that believed in it, and then getting the funding, and then just proving, like, right, I'm going to go get all these downloads and show you, and we're going to get loads of feedback, and the tech team are working to debug it, and we're getting as much feedback as we can so we can try and improve the features to make sure that the app was as sticky as possible. And what do we define as an active user? Looking at our data, how do we learn, how do we optimize? And we just worked and worked and worked tirelessly to try and get the traction up, and just continue raising. And that's really how I see most apps do it. You have to prove yourself at the start, and then it's really about then getting to revenue generation. You can obviously start with a premium app, but because you don't tend to have the funding, you can't really scale it very well. So obviously the conversion rate is around 2 to 8% for subscription apps. So obviously if you've only got a small amount of funding and you're putting a lot of money on marketing, and then you're only getting 2 to 8% that are actually coming through and subscribing, it's not very much revenue unless you've really got a lot of money to spend. And at that point, you don't really want to spend a lot of money because you haven't learned everything you need to from the data to make sure that it is scalable. So the best way to do it, really, which you see with a lot of apps, is to be free for a certain amount of time. Yeah. Prove yourself, and then later introduce a premium plan, which is what we've done. And then the premium plan we've built is everything we know the users love and that they've asked for, because we've built it for them over the years. And we've been able to build a relationship with them. We've built a community. We've kept them going along our journey. We understand they're low paid workers. So, trying to, getting to them revenue generation and saying like, now you've got to pay was really scary. But if you offer enough value and it's solving a big enough problem, and you keep them going with you, on that journey, then actually you can do it. And we've done it, and we've hit the targets that we hoped for, and we've converted such a huge portion of our existing user base to now be paying customers. So we're unlocking each step, and each step is going well so far, but there's a lot more steps to go. We've got to scale now and raise even more funding. But yeah, I hope that's kind of understandable about the stages that we've took, which I know is very specific to kind of a B2C app company. So it does vary with different businesses.
So it's a bit chicken and egg, isn't it? You need the money to fund the development, and you can't get the money because you're not getting paid for it, and you've got to get paid for it before you can prove it to get the money. So I know I've heard you talk about this before. So what are the good bits and what are the bad bits about what you've learned and how you've been out there trying to raise funding? And what could you teach people who are listening?
Yeah, I think the bad bits for me has been fundraising, like hands down. It can be exhausting, because you start to question sometimes, like, is it good enough? Is the product there? Luckily, well, I say luckily, from hard work, like, we were getting great growth. So we've always had really good organic growth. So even where we've had to switch off our marketing, or even where our funds have been low, we're still getting continuous downloads, and great feedback. And our ratings and review on the App Store is 4.8, and we've got thousands of reviews that just show, how much it's helping people and genuinely changing their lives. So that, for me, like, helped me through some of the tough times, because I was confident we were solving a problem, and I'd been through it myself, and I was like, no, I've got to keep going. And I had the resilience and determination to get through those hard times. If I didn't have the passion for the business, and there wasn't a problem that was really solving, I was still trying to look for product market fit, I don't know how I'd have survived some of those times where I ran out of money. So I think that's really important in terms of, like, learning, stepping back and looking. If you're struggling, like, are you solving a problem? Is it, is the business needed? And if so, fight like a crazy person, because I did not think I could get out of some of those situations I was in, and I did. So, I'm living proof you can, with, not being a first-time founder, being a non-technical founder, female, raising funding, like, everything was against me. B2C business, a market that don't have much excess money, everything was against me, and I got through by just pure determination and the fact that the product was good and it sold itself, at times. So I think the bad parts has definitely been fundraising for me. I wish it wasn't this hard. I get sick of hearing people say about the US having just a different way of thinking, to these types of businesses. Raising it from the north has been quite difficult, because there's just naturally a smaller pool of investors, and out of that pool of investors, there's only a small percentage that are willing to take the risk on B2C. So it did mean that I had to kind of, like, really look outside of that, and graft to find money, which I've done. So I wish that was a little bit better. And I think the way that people think and how much risk is taken, I wish we were a little bit more like the US with that. But I think if you've got everything I've said, then you can do it.
Yeah. I think the thing you said right at the start is key. And I think, I'm an angel investor. I see quite a lot of ideas come forward. And it's that first thing you said, which is, are you solving a pain point? And then it's, if you are, and you're doing it well enough and people are willing to pay, then you've got an idea. But people come at it the other way around sometimes. I've got this idea. Well, what pain point does it solve? Oh, well, we'll work that one out later. But anyway, that is, I can hear the frustration in your voice. And actually, that actually leads into this week's business surgery. Now, we've asked listeners and viewers to send in their business problems for us to solve. This one is sort of relevant to that. I won't give a name to it, and you'll understand why. This person has written in and said, I have fallen out of love with my business. What can I do? Now, I'll give you my 10 penneth, and then you can give your 10 penneth. My answer to that would be, you can actually look at it at both ends of it. And I think the first two questions you'd have to ask yourself is, why did you launch the business in the first place? And is that still relevant? And what is the why of the business? Why is the business there? What's it doing? All that sort of stuff. And if those two things are not still there, then it might actually be time to hold your hands up and jack it in. Conversely, I would look at it from the other end. And I had a client recently who had the same problem, and actually said, well, okay, what is it that's making you fall out of love with the business? And actually attack that. And the client I dealt with, his business had just got overwhelmed with it. And all he needed to do, and I helped him do this, was sit back, put together a strategy and go, right, okay, you've got a clear strategy back again. So they would be my two ways of solving that problem. George, what would your solution to I have fallen out of love with my business be?
Yeah, it does kind of lead on to what I was just saying quite well, because I think for me, it is about the why are you feeling like that? Because as I've just said, there's been times where I have been really struggling and just like, gosh, I don't think I can do this on my own. I'm not sure I can get this funding. I'm not sure. And I have to just treat everything as a problem that can be solved. And if you can't solve it, then you have to think, right, there's nothing else you can do. You might have to then, think about stopping. So I think there's a number of things. It could be because something's stressing you out, and you're not really sure. You're just very, very stressed. There could be multiple things. It could be one thing. It could be that you're overwhelmed, which at times that's kind of probably the feeling that I've had the most. As you've said, the person you're speaking to felt like that. Is something just not working? Are you marketing? Have you tested something and it's just not working, but you're like, but this did. So, or we've proved product market fit, but this bit's not working. Like, is it something that's broken? Or are you not passionate about the problem you're solving anymore? And like I said, that has kind of helped me get through those really tough times. If I wasn't passionate about the thing I was solving, and if it hadn't happened to me and I wasn't on such a mission, then I don't know how I'd have got through some of those stages. So are you passionate about the business? Are you passionate about what you're trying to solve? And if you're not anymore, I don't think that can be solved. I think you can break down, is something stressing you out? I think you can break down the I'm overwhelmed. What is it? Let's lay it out. Let's see how we can get people to help. Let's come together as a team. Let's change our strategy. Is something not working? Again, change the strategy, talk about it. But losing passion, I don't think you can solve that. I don't know how you rebuild that. So depending on what the business is, obviously you can't really comment too much. But for me, I think if I lost passion and didn't care about the problem anymore, I wouldn't be able to put the work in that's needed to make a success of the business. Yeah. So I'd probably say, like, maybe this isn't for me anymore, and whether that's someone else taking over the business, so that you keep, kind of your vision going, but someone else is taking over, which is a really good thing in some cases.
Great advice there, George. Thank you. So if hopefully that helps. and I say can't name the name, obviously. But if anybody else wants to send in their business problem for the next business surgery, just drop me an email, phil@leadsbusinesspodcast.com, and me and a future guest will hopefully solve your problem. Right, let's get right up to date. So what does the business look like now, and what's next on the agenda?
Yes, so we are we've focused on traction. I think we've shown early product market fit. We are genuinely changing thousands of hourly paid workers' lives. We are at around 330,000 installs. As I said, we launched our premium plan, so we are now revenue generating. That was about 5 months ago, and we hit our targets. So now it was about really spending the next sort of 3 to 6 months after we launched, making sure that is good to be scaled. Is it ready to put some money into in terms of marketing? Are we able to make sure our conversion rates are safe, our churn rates are safe if we're going to increase that marketing? So it's been like really that over the last 6 months, and then getting ready for funding, because to be able to increase marketing and do all of those things and get the right expertise into the team, you need more money. So, but we're in such a great position now to be able to do that. And for the first time ever, we are getting a lot of commitments and a lot of interests and term sheets coming, because we are at that point of revenue generation, which is hard to get to with B2C apps. So that's changed everything for us. So we're sitting in a really great position at the minute, really exciting. I'm raising a bridge round at the moment. And then we will raise our 1.5 to £2 million round in Q1. So I'm basically setting up both now. We're taking money in right now for our bridge. And then Q1, I'm now starting those conversations again. And to help with those conversations, and the reason I've pushed it to Q1 is because there's still a lot of things I feel that we can do to de-risk the business, to be able to make sure our valuation's at a good place, to be able to answer the questions. So, you know, what about your data? What about a B2B play? Like all of the things that I know are going to hit me when I do that fundraising, because I've had experience of it. So I've pushed it a little bit, raised a bridge to be able to answer those questions. So we're working on now our B2B opportunities. We're still fully B2C focused. We're empowering workers, but we are looking at how we can basically work with some of the employers that we're seeing workers come from. So we've got thousands and thousands of workers from McDonald's, Tesco's, Audi, Greggs, Walmart, like the biggest businesses, some of the biggest employers in the UK or even in the world. So now we're looking at how we can work with those businesses to give them access to basically reconcile some of the data that the workers are putting in against the data they've got. So to kind of make that middle ground, that relationship a bit better between employer and employee, we feel that we can come in and support with that. But we're just exploring it. It's very early days, but the conversations we're having with employers and with agencies who are also now putting our solution in place as a B2B solution, even though we haven't even done that yet. It's really exciting. So yeah, we're fundraising, answering those questions, exploring other revenue opportunities, and slowly scaling our B2C app, making sure that we're helping people in the way that we want to. We're making it affordable, but we're making a sustainable business model.
And if anybody's interested in getting on board on the journey, there will be full details of how to contact George and WAC's URL website. So I can't forget the name. Will all be in the show notes. So yeah, if you're interested in getting behind George, yeah, all in the show notes. Now, every week we ask our guests to give us a how-to. So, George, what are you going to teach us how to do, and then teach us how to do it?
Okay, so I've kind of gone through some of the things by my journey, but by telling my journey, but a lot of the time I get people, coming forward asking like, how do you build an app? Like everyone's kind of got an idea, I feel like, for an app, because we use them every day. Sometimes they can be built solving really basic sometimes they can be solving very basic problems, or sometimes it's completely new idea. So I thought it would be useful if I broke down the stages of how I built an app company and how I explain to people how I think they should start looking into building an app company if they have an idea, and go through each of those as basically and simply as I possibly can.
Okay, fire away.
Okay, so I think step one, you should focus on kind of the planning side of it, just planning out the business, planning out your idea, brainstorming, like really, really high level. So what I used for it, which a lot of people use, there is different versions of it now available, but I used a business model canvas. So a business model canvas has been created to help you kind of build out the different segments of your business and start to fill the holes and think about each part of a business. And some of those things I had no clue, even existed. So I thought it was a great way to be able to break down your ideas. So the one that I followed was thinking about your value proposition. And then you think about your customer segments. So that's, who is it for? Is it B2B? Is it B2C? Who are you going to target first? How will they use your product? Really thinking about that end user. And then thirdly, what channels would you use? So how do you think your audience would best receive that information? Is it social media? Is it is it something offline? Is it through your website? Then your customer relations, so your relationship, so how to engage with your customers. So is there going to be things like, if it's an app, are you going to talk to them through your app? Is there going to be emails? Are you going to need push notifications? Is it WhatsApp? Is it going to be your website? Is it going to be an online chat? So how do you build out those relationships with your customer? Then you need to think about your revenue. That's obviously the most important part, I think, because that's the bit where if you need to raise funding, if you need to get more money for the business, grant funding, anything, that's the question you're going to get asked. And obviously there's no point if ultimately you can't make a success and money for your business because you won't be able to run it. So how will you make that revenue? Is it through, if it's an app, is it through subscriptions? Is it going to be through affiliate partnerships? Is it an e-commerce business, so all online? Think about all those different ways in which you can make revenue. Obviously, I thought that firstly it would just be our subscription model, but we're looking at data now. We're looking at other solutions with agencies and employers. So really think about all the different ways you could make money. And then key activities of the business. So how are you going to do that? How are you going to research? Who's going to do it? How are you going to get funding? Do you know anyone already who's going to be part of your business? Are you going to need to design something? Are you going to need to develop something? Will it take marketing? Thinking about all those different activities that you're going to have to do to make a success of that business. And then key resources, that's kind of the next step to the key activities. To do that marketing, are you going to need an agency? Do you know someone that could help you as an advisor? Are you going to need to hire someone? Are you going to need a dev team for you to be able to develop the product? Or are you going to bring on a CTO or a co-founder? Then there is key partnerships. Are you going to be able to make partnerships with people such as an agency or the government or another company to be able to make a better success of that business? And then lastly, the cost structure. So really breaking down the costs, looking at, okay, so now I've thought about all those things. What are those kind of running costs? Will I need to work from somewhere? How much will that cost me to get that marketing agency? How much will it cost me to get that development agency? Will I need to pay myself? When can I give up my job? So they're kind of the stages to a business model. And they basically helped me break down everything at a very, very high level. I did it on a big, like A0 sheet of paper, I think. And then suddenly I had all of these things that I needed to start a business, and before that I had absolutely no clue. So the first part to getting going, I think, is planning, and just at that high level thinking about what problem are you solving, what's your value proposition, and how are you going to make that happen. So after planning, I then think you need to go on to research. So step 2 is research for me, and that's a competitor analysis. That's how I started with apps, especially. There's a lot of apps out there, and even though you think, nah, I've not seen it, I'm not the only one, that you there's going to be something that's close. So it's really about finding all of them. And even if it's not all of them, is there parts of it? So for example, one of our features is a rota feature, but there's an app that is specifically just helping people track their rotas. So, listing that out and just putting a whole big list in Google Sheets. And then I literally looked at what problem are they trying to solve? What's their pricing model? Where's their HQ? How many ratings and reviews have they already got? What are their features? How do they charge people? What's their size? And you just get as much information as possible. And from that, you will realize, oh, actually, I need that feature. Like, oh, actually, those ratings are really good for that. I need to do that, but I need to do it better. And I need to add that. Or it's okay, they're looking at a different market to me, so maybe they're not a direct competitor. So I think that second stage for researching your product and what else is out there and doing that competitor analysis is vital. And then after you've done that, if you still think that you've got an idea that isn't completely oversaturated in the market and you still think it's a problem, or in some cases you can still be bothered to do any more work, because I get a lot of people that get to stage 2 and they go, oh, no, I can't be bothered. And I'm like, well, then you're not gonna be able to start the business. So then once you've done that, step 3, there's 5, by the way, so I'll try not to make this too long. Step 3 is the company phase. It's just starting to think about what we would look like as a company. Do you know how to register a business? It's really easy to find that information out online. It costs a small amount. There's a lot of companies that say they'll charge you loads of money to do it. You can do it yourself on the government website. But just getting into that and gathering that information. What name of the company do you think? Have you got an idea for logos? It's quite a fun bit. Who would be involved? Are you going to be a co-founder, or is there any other directors? Thinking about your branding, landing pages, building a website, which you can do on Wix really cheaply, and building out your socials, just looking at how you would actually start to build that business. Step 4 is then the product, which is where it got to for me, where I sat on the floor in my flat and I drew out what I thought would look like a really cool app, which actually turned out it would have looked awful if it looked anything like the drawings that I did. But it's had a complete glow up now. And but it was enough, that was needed to get those first ideas going. So draw it out. What do you think? Like, scribble it out. I've still got all of the original drawings of the app, and it's really cool to look at, and you can see how it links up to what there is now, and like really how it started out at that very, very early stage. And it was really important for me. And then mock them up into what kind of looks like an app. So you can go on Canva now and do that quite easily. You can literally just put it together, just an idea, just like there'd be a button here that would be there. You can get some templates on the online, or you can ask a designer to do it. There's some that you can get, like, for £20 an hour. It'll probably take them an hour just to do it. Just get it mocked up. And then lastly, step 5 would be then testing those mock-ups and essentially testing that prototype. There's some apps now that you can actually build out like an app prototype. You can find stuff online. Basically do anything you can for as cheap as possible to get those ideas you've had out in the open, and find a group of people, set up some way to track it on like a Google Sheets or on a survey or something, and send it to as many people as possible who would be your end user. That's very important, and get as much feedback as possible. And then after those 5 steps are done, you will understand whether there is actually something that you can run with. And so until all of these steps are done, I don't think you should progress with giving up your job, raising any funding, looking into development, looking into marketing, none of that. Because you quite often get people, I try and help as many people as I can come to me and say, I've got an idea, I'm going to look for developers. And it's like, don't do that. Take these 5 steps before, figure out if there's a problem that can be solved, and then by doing those things like drawing it out and thinking about the product, you save a lot of money in development. Because then when I went to the design phase of the development, I had all of that in place. I tested it on some people, I changed some ideas based on the feedback I'd had from that, and development was a lot cheaper because you'll get charged at first for them to basically tell you to go and do that, and then you find out actually it needs to be changed and you're getting charged by the hour. So that's my advice, and steps to building an app company, as basic as I can give it for now, to kind of try and help people do those early stages before going into crazy things like giving up their job before they know if there's even a business.
George, that's absolutely fantastic. That is possibly one of the most comprehensive how-tos we've ever had on the show. But you're absolutely right. Once you get to step 5, then you can start seriously thinking about it. If you don't do the other 4, if you don't do the 5 steps, you're either going to waste a lot of money or waste a lot of time or waste both. So, George, absolutely brilliant. Thank you for all of that. So, before we finish, one last request.
I'm glad it is. I like helping people. It's good.
I thought you meant good. You're nearly at the end.
No, good. I'm so glad this is over. No, I love doing this. Honestly, it's great, and I love being able to share the knowledge, because honestly, if I had a lot of that before, like, it would have saved so much time and money. So it's great. It's great that you're giving me the chance to be able to share that information. So not good about this ending.
Oh, that's nice of you to say. Anyway, it has to end. So the last thing you need to do is give another Leeds business a shout out. So who are you going to give a shout out to?
I'm going to be a bit cheeky, because I thought about this, and there's 2 businesses that have helped me just this week that are Leeds based. And I didn't know what one to say, and I thought, right, stuff it. I'm going to say both if you're happy with that. Fine. Okay. So one of the biggest issues I've had as a startup and in the type of business that we are is understanding our data and what are our KPIs, and how can I communicate them to investors? How do I raise funding? Because I need to make sure that, they're tracked, they're accurate. And one of the hardest things for me has been able to get all of that data from all the different platforms and get it all into one place. So I called, actually I had a brunch with Anna Sutton and got the chance to be like, help, I hope you can help me, because you're the queen of data. And they've recently started a business called the Data Refinery, which is really solving the exact pain point that we have. And Anna jumped on a call with me as quick as she could, and has helped us try and understand our data. They're typically not working with B2C businesses like ours, but we're still willing to help and see if the products was something that would be able to support us, and it looks as though it can, very much so. So basically, if you're having a problem with data and you just want to be able to get everything in a clear dashboard and have some support, then the Data Refinery is the exact company for you. And secondly, I have recently met Abby Thorpe, who is a lovely co-founder of a business called ROI, and she does it with her husband, Miles Thorpe. We've had some issues with our website. It needed improving. We didn't have a big budget to be able to go to an agency or to a website designer and improve it. Most of our links are to the App Store, so we don't have a load of traffic on our website, so it just kept going down the list. Anyway, we've done it in-house, and the team have done an absolutely amazing job. Actually, Eden, who does everything in the business from marketing to PR to now website building, took it on, and we have had some support at the highest level from Abby and Miles to basically help us build a agency level WordPress website internally, but with their support, so that they kind of take it to the next level. And it's a new business. They're just now getting out their beta version of the software, I think, but it's definitely a company to look out for and know about, because even at this very early level, they have been amazing. So I'm really excited to see where their product develops too. So Data Refinery and ROI are the 2 Leeds businesses I'm shouting out this week.
There will be links to both of them in the show notes. George, it has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you ever so much indeed for being a guest on the Leeds Business Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope I've not waffled too much and it's been valuable for all listeners. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to this episode. I hope you found it interesting, inspiring, and of use. To make sure you don't miss out on any future episodes, please subscribe to the show. Go on, do it now. Do it now before you go off and do something else. Thank you. Much appreciated. Oh, And don't forget our fair deal. See you next week.